Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Awile. In today's video, we are going to be creating this beautiful dress with yoke sleeve. If this is something you're interested in, then keep on watching, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to share. Okay, to create this style, you'll be needing 2 yards of Ankara for the body, 1 yard of Ankara for the yoke, and 24 inches zip for the front and a lining. So guys, I folded this cloth into 4. Please take note, I left 1 inches zip allowance for the front side of the dress. So as you can see, I folded it into 4 and I started by measuring my shoulder at 7.5 inches, then going down to 1 inches with my shoulder sloped, then 7.5 inches for my armhole. And to get your armhole, all you need to do is divide your bust by 6 plus 1.5 inches allowance. Then I measured my bust point, my bust point at 9 inches. Then my waist at 17 inches. Then I measured my hip at 25 inches. So I took my length measurement at 40 inches, then 2 inches folding allowance. I draw the armhole, then divide your armhole into 2 to get your armhole curve. Then mark and give it a curve. So I went ahead to measure my neckline. I took my neckline at 3.5 inches. That is 3.5 inches. Then for the neck depth, I went in by 4 inches. I connected this. For the back neckline, I took 2 inches for the back neckline and I gave it a curve. So I inserted my body measurements. My bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. You divide your bust by 4, then whatever you got, you mark, then add 2 inches allowance. Then your waist divided by 4 also. Whatever you get, you mark, then 2 inches allowance. If you want your gown to be big, if you want it a free gown, you can make it 3 inches. For mine, I don't want it a free gown, so that is why I'm using 2 inches allowance. So for your hip also, whatever you got, after dividing by 4, you mark, then you add 2 inches allowance to it. Then whatever you mark at your hip length, bring it down to your gown length. Bring it down to your gown length and also mark at the allowance. Then connect it all together. Connect the whole lines together to meet each other. So guys, I connected the shoulder loop and I went ahead to cut it out. I was supposed to divide that shoulder loop by 1/2 inches, but you can divide your shoulder slope into 2 before cutting it out for joining allowance at the neckline. So I went ahead to cut out the back neckline. Then you can see what I'm doing. So this is the front neckline, because there's going to be zip at the front neckline. So I went ahead to curve it before cutting it out. So what I did was to cut my gown length. trying to check if I'm going to use the hole or to cut it out. So I decided to cut it out. Because my fabric is not enough, the fabric I'm using is not up to 2 inches, but when you are making yours, I think you should make the fabric 2 inches, or my fabric is 1.5 inches, so I'm trying to manage my fabric. So guys, it's time to mark my dart. So for my back dart, I have to minus 10 inches from the up, because I don't want the dart to start from up, so I want it only at my waist side. So when I minus 10 inches from the up, I place my tape at that 10 inches point, then mark another 10 inches to get my dart. Then my nipple to nipple measurement, I divided my nipple to nipple into 2 in order to get my dart placement. So I placed it on the fabric. Then divide the dart by 2, that is 5 inches. Then take half inches from the two sides, that is 1 inches. Half inches on the left, half inches on the right, that is half inches, another half inches, in total 1 inches. Then connect it to have a point at the upper side and at the down part. You can see the way I connected mine. So I'm going to do the same thing over again at the other side. Mark 10 inches from the shoulder downward. Then place your tape at that 10 inches and mark another either 10 inches or 12 inches for a taller person. So nipple to nipple divided by 2, I mark. Connect the whole lines together, divide this into 2, take half inches from the left side, half inches from the right side. Then connect the line. I'll go over to the sewing machine and sew the darts. So I'm just showing you guys how it's going to look like after stitching it. I'm going to open the material and I'll hold it like this and sew on it just like this. Go over to the other side, open the material too, sew on one side of the material and sew on the other side of the material. So guys, this is what it's looking like after I've gone ahead to stitch my darts. You can see. So guys, because my fabric is not enough, I decided to use my lining to turn it. Otherwise I would have cut yoke from my fabric, but since my fabric is not enough, so I decided to use lining. So I made it a short lining. The lining stopped at my waist, so all I did was to trace it out and cut exactly. Cut out the neckline too. So I'll use my lining to turn the neck lining. You can see I'll just go over to the sewing machine, stitch on the neckline, stitch on the two sides. You can as well fold the lining, but I didn't fold my own, so I went ahead to stitch on my armhole to the side, stitch my neckline. So you can see So guys, I went ahead to launch the whole side of the fabric that I stitched with the lining. So after launching it, I will go ahead and open it up so you guys will see how it looks like. So this is it. You can fold your lining to give it a neat finishing, but I decided to leave mine like that since I'm done wearing it. So this is how it looks like. So after I've done the same thing for the other side too, for the front side, I decided to join the two necklines. So what I did was I didn't finish stitching it at the armhole side, so I just brought out the lining and used it to cover the other side of the armhole and stitched on it. So I went over to the sewing machine and sewed or stitched on it. You can see the way I folded it. Okay, maybe. So guys, this is what it's looking like after I stitched it with the lining. So I marked 1 inches for my zip allowance. I marked 1 inches from the neck to, I decided to mark it till down and stitch it. So I decided to mark it up to down. So I'm going to stitch it and start working on the other area. So for the middle, I marked 3 inches. Let me just open it so you guys can see it and I can know what I'm marking also. So from the shoulder point, I went down by 6 inches. I forgot to place the tape at the middle of the neck to mark 6 inches, so you can do that. So for the front, the side going to the armpit side, I marked 6 inches. I'm going to go back to correct it. Okay, so the side going to the armhole side, I marked it at 6 inches. Then for the zipper allowance side, that is the middle of the dress, I'm going to divide the 6 inches by 2, and whatever I got, I'll place it here. Connect the whole lines together. I'm just showing you. So I measured from one armhole to the other armhole, and I'm trying to get my round sleeve. I'm working on the yoke. So I went ahead, I measured my arm, the biggest size of my arm. I measured it, and whatever I got 12 inches. So that 12 inches, I'm going to write it down because I'm going to be adding up all this measurement together. So measure your own from one armhole to the other. Do the same thing at the front, and whatsoever you get, plus it together. For mine, I got 15 at the front and 15 at the back. I added it up, that is 30. Then my arm round sleeve, 12 for the two side, added it up, which is 24. 24 plus 30, which is 54. Then divide it by 6.28. So for the yoke, that's 8.5 inches that I got. I'm going to mark it now. After folding my fabric by 4, you make sure you fold your fabric by 4, then mark 8 points. If you want it to have a print, then add 2 inches to that 8 points, or you can just cut it and then recut it again. That is if you want it to have much print. So I want my own straight like that. So that 8.45, I went ahead to mark it all round. So for the length, I'm going to be using 7 inches. I want to use 7 inches. So I'm going to mark my desired length. So take your own at your desired length. If you want it to be down, you can mark. Then I added 1 inches to the 7 inches for folding allowance. So I marked 8 inches all round. So I've gone ahead to cut it out. I'll also cut out this upper side too. But before then, I want to mark half inches allowance round. Then open up one side. So this is what you're going to get. So I'll go over to my sewing machine now and fold. I'm going to fold it with just 1 inches. Fold it and then refold it again. So after folding it, this is what it looks like. This is what you're going to be having after folding your own. Then go over to the sewing machine again and fold the two sides. So after folding it, I marked the middle of the yoke, and I also went to the fabric to mark at the middle of the fabric too. So I'll use my pin to secure it from one middle meeting the other middle. So I'm going to secure it here now. So from there, I'm going to pin it over until one end meets with the other end of the dress. One end of the yoke will meet with the other end of the dress. So guys, I'm done securing it with the pin. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and I'll sew it all around the same way I pinned it. So this is what it's going to be looking like after I have stitched it. So I want to cut out the pockets. So to cut out the pocket, just measure 12 inches by length, 12 inches by length, then 11 inches by width or depth, 12 inches, but I decided to use 11 inches. But normal standard I think it's 12 inches. I just gave it a curve, but normal this thing is supposed to be 7 inches by width. Then you curve it, make it have a point. You can see the way I did mine. So I will go ahead and divide it by 4. So guys, to know where to place my pockets, I'm trying to arrange my dress so I can get accurate measurements. So I'll place my tape at my shoulder length and I'll measure 17 inches. That is what I use when you measure 17 inches. Or you can do it 1 inches after your waistline. Either 1 inches after your waistline, or just measure 17 inches and go down by 7 inches. You guys didn't see that? I went down by 7 inches. So look at the way I'm going to use my pin to secure it. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew just like this. As you can see my finger. So guys, I've gone ahead to stitch it and also fix my zip because my battery was down, so I did it behind the camera. So I just came to show you guys. Just go ahead, fix your zip, stitch it, and it's all done. So you just measure your zip to the length of the zip. Wherever the zip stop, you stitch the other place closed, or you can buy a longer zip. So this is where my zip stop, so I decided to stitch it all closed, and this is what it's looking like.